Welcome to Preserving Your History on Film. My name is Ronald Dolphus. There's nothing more powerful, more intimate, and more reflective than a verbal interpretation of a family history story. There's something magical about those words spoken from someone and being passed down to children, grandchildren, nieces, and nephews. It is something that cannot be replaced, but there is a way to enhance it and frame it into something more special to be passed down to a younger generation. This is why I created this workshop to tweak your creative juices to produce a more visual interpretation of your family legacy. I am the son of a librarian, and because of my mother's occupation, early on in life I gained a passion for reading and learning about history. When I grew up, Mom said I should have been a history teacher. That didn't happen. But I did become the director of a nonprofit community theater company for youth. So instead of just teaching young people about history, I was able to create a platform for young people to portray memorable Black history characters on stage. Like, for instance, Henry Box Brown, a real-life person that was held in bondage in 1849 when he shipped himself in a box from Virginia to Philadelphia into freedom. We portrayed this saga on stage several times where one of my young actors would portray Henry Box Brown, and I always would portray the person who would let him out of the box when he arrived in Philadelphia and to freedom. Before I produce a stage play or film, the most important step is preparation. It's no substitute for good planning so that when I'm shooting on stage in front of a live audience, things go smoother and much better based on the preparation that I already had did. So likewise, when you're preparing your family legacy story, pre-production is essential. Plan your scenes and plan what you're going to do, what's going to be said, and also plan the overall structure as well. Yeah. When I did my film, I used professional cameras because a professional camera gives a very distinctive cinematic quality to the final product. But you can use cell phones, either iPhone or Android, to produce your family history story. Either iPhone or Android, and this can be very effective as well in making a story, and also, more importantly, very cost effective as well. You have to have a big budget to do it. So now let's go over some pre-maintenance tips. And some of these may be a little simple and obvious, but of course you want to clean your screen, clean the front of it so there won't be no smudges, anything that's going to hinder or smudge the image. Another thing that you want to do is delete any old files that may be on your phone. Think files that you may need, because it'd be a waste of time to film something that went very well and very precious and very good, and then there's no storage to hold on to it. So keep in mind just to kind of go back and look at those things you don't need and delete those out. Make sure your phone has a full charge. I know that's very elementary, but you want to have power to produce your story, and you want to produce your phone horizontally. Of course, you don't want the images to be moving, so one simple way to do it, a device that we're all familiar with, or should be familiar with, is a selfie stick. It can stabilize your camera. Now, a selfie stick, most time we are doing it this way, taking a selfie this way, but this can be used as to hold the camera still, even moving while you're making your story. Okay? So this is a great way to do it. If you want to, you can get a professional tripod as well to hold the camera, but a selfie stick is just as effective as that as well. But it's also, you can be very creative even without this. You can actually attach your phone to your chest, or attach it to a door or a wall to get some very creative outlooks. Or you can attach it to a ceiling, but you can get a bird's eye view of maybe a person walking into a room. I know a colleague of mine, she's an Asian film director, and she made, instead of using a tripod, she used a garbage can as a tripod. She taped the cell phone to the garbage can, and she was able to turn it around and rotate it to what she needed in. So you can do some creative things with the camera to get the best picture, the best creative design on your product. The next thing you want to think about is lighting. Make sure you have good lighting that is well balanced. Lighting that will prevent shadows. And also, most importantly, when you have a close shot like this, you want to make sure your whole face is lit. Even if you don't have as much light as you're looking at me right now, you can make sure that the part of the face is lit. Even though there could be some shadows, just make sure that you have a right angle to do that. When you do your film, look directly at the camera and smile when you're talking to your audience. Now, if you're by yourself and you're making your film, there's nobody around, and you have to turn on the camera yourself, make sure that once you turn your camera on, wait a while and just smile and be very quiet before you start talking, because that way the audience won't see you turning on the camera, and that part can be deleted out. So you turn it on, and then you smile a while, then you start talking. And likewise, when you finish your presentation, you finish it and it's over with, you smile, wait a few seconds, and then you turn it off, where that part can be edited out later on when you're doing your editing. Now, one thing about editing is many cameras, cell phones have a editing software on it. If your camera does not have editing software for editing or graphics, you can download it from the App Store. Another thing about filming as well is that if cameras have, the cell phone cameras have automatic exposure. That means that when you move and it's a change in light, if you move around the room, it's going to change the light and the texture of it automatically. But that also comes with a risk, because it could cause some blur and some blurry light and some blurry of the image because of that automatic exposure. So if all possible, don't try to do too much movement depending on the light situation while you're filming to prevent that. Now, one advanced step that you can take advantage of if you have the right camera is you can change from automatic to manual exposure. That way you can initiate a more consistent and constant lighting if you want to move around a room, if your phone has that setting to go from manual to automatic. Of course, I just mentioned about the editing. You can, when you finish filming, you can do several different takes, and then you can edit it into one video with that software that you can attain. If it's not in your camera, with the app, you can also, like I mentioned before, you can attain it through the App Store. And if you have problems with any of this, one solution is to get a teenager. I have one at home that helps me with things, technical issues that I have from time to time. So it's always good to have a teenager around, either one of your children, one of your grandchildren. That don't mean that people, older people like myself, are really slow to technology. We are technology procrastinators. At least I am. Now, a young person, they rush to technology. They sprint to learn how to do the latest thing, this and that and this, and they rush to it. But I don't do technology unless I have to do it. So I kind of more in my senior years, I walk towards it. I walk towards technology. I can do it. Once I do it, I can do it. But I'm kind of like a technology procrastinator. But which is good, and that's the way it is. But if you have any problems, as I mentioned, find a young person. Now let's discuss a structure format for your family legacy video. And the subject will be my own great-great-grandfather, Anquin Fuller, who lived in Greenville, South Carolina more than a century ago when he purchased over 300 acres of land. Several of his African American neighbors didn't think that he would be able to pay for the property or even keep it, but he did. So now we're going to show you 3 separate methods which can be used separately or can be combined for your presentation. The first method is the documentary style, which would be an informal account of the facts given at a certain location. The second method is reenactment, which is an acting dialogue formatted as a skit with actors portraying characters. And the third is a monologue, which is a spoken statement, almost like a speech with strong opinions and perspective given directly towards an audience. This is part of the land brought by Anquin Fuller more than 100 years ago, 300 acres. But at the time, some of his friends wondered how did he get so much money to buy this property. And also because he was a black man, they felt that someone would try to swindle him or trick him or try to find some other loophole to take the land away from him. But he was able to buy it, keep it, and provide an inspiration to everyone, even today.
What you looking at, chicken foot?
I got some good news for you. The Lord has blessed me to buy all of this land, 300 acres.
300 acres?
Mm-hmm.
What? What? Well, sir, 300 acres of land.
Yeah.
How about that? How about that? How you get the money to buy all this land?
With hard work. You know, I've been working hard for years. That's how I was able to buy it.
Well, chicken foot, I got some bad news for you.
What?
You think the white man is gonna let you keep all this land? Well, you know George over there, he brought some land. He got all senile and stuff. The white man came back and took the land from him. And George had to move in with his daughter and 10 chaps.
Well, all I know is that the Lord owns everything. I'm just a steward. So I have trust and faith that I did my part, and he's going to do his part.
Well, I guess we gotta see what the Lord is gonna do.
Yeah, amen to that.
Amen.
An African American man, a man of means in a time of discrimination, oppression, and outright terror. But through faith, character, and hard work, he is able to purchase 300 acres of South Carolina farmland. But people questioned whether he would be able to do it or not. They also thought that the white man wouldn't allow him to keep so much property. So his black friends doubted him. His Negro friends talked about him behind his back. And his colored friends laughed and snickered. But through it all, Anquin Fuller was able to buy the land, keep the land, and pass it down through the generations to his descendants. One of the best ways to comprise your family legacy story is with an interview, a wonderful way. So I'm proud to have my mother, Robbie Lett, talk about my great-grandfather, Robert Grant.
Yes, my grandfather was named Robert Rufus Grant. He named my father Rufus William Grant, after William after one of his brothers. I'm named after him, Robbie Grant, so I'm the proud granddaughter. As a small child in Greenville, South Carolina, I have very fond memories of my grandfather. He was a contractor, laid bricks, hired people to work with him in York and Fort Mill, South Carolina. They were building the mills at that time. My father told stories when he was a little boy back in the 20s, that his father would bring him up to Fort Mill and Rock Hill to build the mills. And he would get to stay all week with his father as a little boy. One of the fond memories that I have is that My grandfather and his brother Daniel had a small grocery store on the corner from our house. And I could go to the grocery store and reach up and find the candy. My aunt and other people helped to keep the store going while my grandfather was away. One of the unhappy memories that I have of this time is that a young man that had gotten in some trouble with the police ran to my grandfather's house and told him, "They're after me. Will you please take me to see my mother one more time? Because I'm sure I'm going to die." And my grandfather got the car out and carried him to his mother, where the police was waiting. They did take him to jail. I do not know what happened to him, but I do know that they did beat my grandfather for being involved with it. They didn't kill him, but he had internal injuries which he eventually died from. He did go to the hospital and stay for a while, but he left because he told the doctors, "I have to go back to Rock Hill and Fort Mill to pay my workers. They're waiting on me and I have their money." That did not help in his internal injuries, which slowly killed him. But I still have fond memories of being a small child and my grandfather carrying me to J.C. Penney's and let me pick out clothes, and that was at the time when Going with the Wind was just coming out, and one of the dresses I bought was a Gone with the Wind dress, which I kept for a long time. I can remember the sales lady, which, as you know, would be around 39, was a white sales lady, referring to my grandfather as Mr. Grant. And I was wondering, who is Mr. Grant? My grandfather's name, Grandfather. Wow.
Now let's talk about an event to premiere your family legacy story. One event that we had success with was the family reunion. A year and a half ago, we presented our short film, Yankee Escapee, at a family reunion dinner. Now, two keys about that was that we was not related to any of the 200 attendees at that dinner. And the other key point was that Yankee Escapee is a fictional story, not tied to that family or any family. But because it was about African Americans living in 1864, there was connection made between the past and that 21st century audience. Everyone enjoyed it, and it was also a great time that we was able to connect with the young people. And that's what we're going to be talking about throughout this presentation, was seeding the young people so they can take over the task of what we're doing now in genealogy. And during that family reunion dinner, we was actually able to call some of the young people up and ask them what they thought about the short film and what they learned from the short film. We also asked them some history questions too. So it was a wonderful addition to that dinner program. Just think about your own family reunion, making your own film about a true life factual event that you can present at your family reunion dinner. It'd be a great part of that program. It'd be icing on the cake as well. Another option is celebration of life. Now that depending on the person, that may be something that's appropriate, possibly useful, maybe not the reenactment that we saw earlier, but maybe something depending on the person's life, doing that homegoing celebration, showing something as a documentary statement about that person's past. Now, on the other end of that, we always know the old saying, why don't you bring flowers to somebody while they're still living? So in this option will be a birthday for a senior birthday. This will be a great time to show your family history story as well. You know, some of a key event, a key story. Just think about the celebrated person all day throughout their childhood and adult, their interactions with their siblings, and also the celebrated persons, the interactions and all the memories that occur with their own children and grandchildren. And this is once again an opportunity to see the young people, connecting them to the past so they can carry on things to the future as well. Another option is the genealogy chapter meeting, your own meetings at your own chapters. When you go back to your home states and hometowns as well. When we show Yankee Escapee at the chapter meeting, even though that was a fictional story, it triggered many tidbits of discussion, many comments, and provided an opportunity that we can educate each other about the subject matter of what we saw. And then a final option would be the church fellowship meeting, a program at your church to show your family legacy story. And this would be a great opportunity once again to connect to young people. And as we know, if you're a Christian like I am, you know that young people have been drifting away from the church, though. So having if it's depending on the right program, you can show your story. That'd be a good way to connect the young people as well. And also you can build stronger relationships with your own senior fellow parishioners as well. Now for your entertainment, we are going to show Yankee Escapee. This is the short film that we produced more than a year and a half ago, and is based on an African American family living in 1864 in the Civil War South. One historical fact that you may be aware of, that there was actually more free blacks living in the South than was in the North, but they still faced discrimination, particularly at that time during the war between the Confederacy and the Union. Now, one key twist in our story was, of course, we all have grown up with stories of African Americans escaping from slavery, running for their lives, running to freedom. So in this story, I wanted to turn it around, and I was thinking, what would it be like if white people were running through the woods, running for safety, trying to run for their lives and running for freedom, and they was taken in and found refuge with a black family. So now let's see what would happen.
We've got to separate. Meet me at the river.
Tomorrow?
Yes, after sunrise. Good luck.
Ours wouldn't go up there if I was you.
Oh my.
You must excuse my manners. I forgot what good food tastes like. All I got in prison camp was hog slop.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Is this farm all yours?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Forgive my ignorance, but I never heard of Negro people being free, let alone owning land. Where I come from, it is so far up north. It is almost Canada. Nothing but white folks. And white snow, too. I heard all the Negroes were held on great big fancy plantations.
There's a big house or two like that nearby.
And your neighbor and his son, is that his farm too?
That's his farm. But that ain't his son. That's his slave.
By golly, Negroes owning Negroes? As slaves? Well, I never heard of such a thing.
He's peculiar like that.
And you better be glad that my husband stopped you from going over there. That man would have told the soldiers to come and get you.
What? Why would he do that?
Like I said, he's a peculiar fella.
You sure do have some long hair.
Yes, they seldom allowed us scissors at prison camp.
My wife sure do love your hair. She don't play with my hair like she playing with yours.
Thank you for the meal. You're blessed to have good food and a home.
Mm-hmm. It is a blessing to be free, but there are thousands, even millions of people held in bondage. Many suffer terrible things. That's slavery for you, my friend.
Well, I didn't know before, but I know now. Where I come from, we're so concerned with our own livelihoods that we had no time to think about slavery so far down south. Well, with the war dragging on and all, most of us Union boys didn't think the war was even worth fighting. After being locked in prison and beaten like dogs, breathing in the filthy odors and trying to sleep with rats crawling all over you, well, perhaps if this will end slavery, this war is worth fighting.
We believe that too. That's why we's helping you.
But if you're caught, you could lose your freedom.
Oh, it wouldn't be the first time. You see, I was born a slave.
Really?
Yep. But my former master freed me. And 2 years later, I saved up enough money to buy my pretty old little wife here. After I bought her, I freed her so we can marry all proper like.
Now that is peculiar. But I suppose it's no different than paying a dowry for a wife. Oh my gosh, speaking of payment, I wish there was something that I could do to repay you for what you're doing for me.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry. I'll think of something.
We're looking for some Yankee prisoners. Have you seen them around here?
Oh, no, sir.
What's wrong with you?
No, sir, I haven't seen anyone.
You're hiding the bluebellies in here, are you?
Oh, no, sir, not at all.
Get out of my way. Back
No,
up!
sir.
Who are you? What do you want?
Pardon me, ma'am. I'm Sergeant Jones. We're just looking for a couple of Yankee prisoners.
Do I look like a Yankee to you?
No, ma'am.
How dare you rudely break in here? Get out!
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry.
Get out of here! Get
Sorry,
out!
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry about all that commotion.
It's just the sergeant's bad manners. But I reckon he was only doing his duty. Oh my, I look so beautiful.
You got some clothes?
Got some food, too.
Starving. While you were sleeping in a warm house, I was out here in the woods with the deer. A couple times, I heard them coming around in the dark. Thought they were rebels. They scared the hell out of each other. Adam, what the hell happened to your hair?
Your hair looks really good on you.
Thank you. Like I said, that girl makes the best wigs in all of North Carolina.
But wasn't you afraid? I heard that there were some escaped Yankees nearby.
A little bit. But now that you mention it, while I was coming home, I had the strangest feeling that one of those scoundrels was lurking nearby.
I remember what you promised when we first came down here for the war. You said you were going to whip the entire rebel army and make a Southern Belle happy.
Well, at least I made a Southern Belle happy.
I hope you enjoy Yankee Escapee. We enjoyed making it, and many people have talked about how much they have been entertained by it and educated as well. Yankee Escapee was made by a professional film crew and was with the use of what's called a red camera, which is a high-grade equipment very similar to the Panavision cameras and Airflex cameras that are used for most major motion pictures. But there were other costs as well. Along with the cameras, we had to pay for the makeup personnel, pay for the location site. We had to pay for food, catering to come out there to feed the crew, cast and crew while I was out there. We had to pay for the actors and also for the sound. We had to have a sound man to get that good quality sound for that. A matter of fact, you may remember in the cabin scene, when it was in there at nighttime, we had to stop filming a few times because a plane was flying overhead. And that sound equipment is so sensitive, even though we couldn't hear the plane flying overhead, that sound equipment was picking that plane noise up. So we had to stop for a while while we was doing that. Other costs was for the film was the editing, the finished post-production, get it edited right just perfectly, putting in the music, and also color grading. That's a process where you kind of adjust the colors of the different scenes. And special effects. We had to have that as part of our post-production expenses. A funny story is, if you remember, when the three Southern ladies was coming down the staircase, that was in a house in Huntersville, North Carolina. And we filmed that scene. But what we didn't fail to realize that when after we reviewed the footage that we had made, when they came down that staircase, we could see an electrical light switch and electrical thermostat on the wall as they came down the steps. Of course, they didn't have electricity lights and thermostats back in the 19th century, so we had to have the special effects person, or called VFX person, to delete those. He had a way to get on his computer and kind of shade that white wall, expand it to cover up that thermostat and that light switch. So those are the things, some of the things that happens when you're making a film. Sometimes it's a joyful work, but it's very, kind of it's a work activity. It's an act of labor. So you have different problems, different things that come up, but it's all, you try to get more good out of it than the bad. And that's what we feel about Yankee Escapee. Back in March, before the pandemic, Yankee Escapee was chosen to be filmed at the Golden State Film Festival in Hollywood, California, which me and my wife attended. We had a wonderful time. And in December, it's going to be screened at the Franklin International Film Festival in Franklin, Tennessee, which is a major event for the state of Tennessee, which has a film industry there as well. When we made this film, we collaborated our money, all the different members of the crew and cast, and came up, it cost over $5,000, but it's money well spent for this really gem of a short film. And that's what shows you that when you come together, you can do something positive. Now, this film, is on the professional end, kind of the high end. You may not want to spend that money to make your own family legacy video. Most of the time, what we've been talking about this earlier in this presentation was how to do it with your iPhone and how to do it with your cell phone or Android, making a video that way. But if you want to take the expenses to make it something that's maybe elaborate as Yankee Escapee, you can always contact me and I can give you advice along the way on what to do to make something a cinematic product like the one you just saw as well. So I want to thank you, my wife, which has been behind the scenes. You may remember her. She's the person that came and told Mr. Ankrum Fuller that he couldn't buy the 300 acres of land. She's the one that called him chicken foot. My wife, Regina Dolphin, she aided and helped make this presentation. My mom as well, she gave the interview, and a lot of other people came together to make this presentation for you. So I'm glad that you enjoyed. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions, and we're about to take questions live right now. So just letting you know that we enjoyed making this, preserving your history on film. So now we go for questions and answers.